très cher sur une thématique qui nous est très importante. Je laisse tout de suite la parole à Monsieur Chamil Albakov. Je suis désolée, on a commencé un peu plus tardivement que prévu. Merci pour votre attente. Je laisse la parole.
Thank you very much. So do you hear me? This conference is organized by the COGEP organization, and we are very happy to have this possibility to address you on this side event. So we represent here the North Caucasus Nations Committee. This committee was created in November last year in Brussels, in the European Parliament. The North Caucasus Nations Committee was created with the help and the support of several Ukrainian deputies, the deputies of the Verkhovna Rada, and also several deputies of the European Parliament. For example, Rafael Glucksmann and Anna Fotiga. So we will talk about the violations of the human rights in North Caucasus, and I suppose that many of you know the region, know all the tragedies what happened throughout the history in our region. We have many reports, thousands and thousands of statistics and thousands of reports about the violations of human rights, about the killing. Thousands of persons were killed throughout the history, 19th century, 20th century, Soviet period, now the new Russian period, before the Ukrainian war, after the Ukrainian war. But everybody talked about that, wrote about that, but we are persuaded, we are sure that the only solution to this problem, to protect our rights, to protect the rights of the North Caucasus people is political solution. So I will present you today our North Caucasus Nations Committee, and the main members of that North Caucasus Nations Committee are Akhmed Zakaev, who is also the Prime Minister of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия in exile. He presents the government in exile of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия, and I will present you other political leader of our North Caucasus, of one of the North Caucasus Caucasian people, the Circassian people. It is Iyad Youghar, who is representing the International Circassian Council in USA, and he is the chairman of our North Caucasus Nations Committee. And myself presenting in this North Caucasus Nations Committee the English people, and I also represent the government of Chechen Republic of Ичкерия in France. I am honorary consul of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия in France. So we have here Chechens, English, Circassians. In our North Caucasus Committee we have also Dagestani people, representative of the Dagestan, Nogai, and we are also in negotiations, in discussions with Karachay and Balkar people to join our North Caucasus Nations Committee. So all that we will say today, all the problems related to the violation of human rights, they are reported. For example, last January this year, Amnesty International published a report talking about the impossibility, the recommending to all the European countries not to deport the refugees of North Caucasus because they have real risk to be forced to go to the war in Ukraine and to be killed or to be tortured or to disappear. And several persons who were deported, disappeared, were killed, were tortured or imprisoned unjustified. So this report, again, we have all these proofs, we have all this information, the statistics, but we are persuaded that now it's time to change the situation throughout the politics. So I give now the word to Akhmed Zakaev, the Prime Minister of Chechen Republic of Ичкерия.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. as the Prime Minister of the Chechen Republic and the Chairman of the State Committee for the Occupation of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for the invitation and opportunity to participate in this conference. And I would like to thank the organizers of this meeting. And this important event deserves the highest prize. Your efforts contribute to the strengthening international cooperation and sharing experience, which is especially crucial in our time. I am confident that results of our joint work will contribute to the further progress and the strengthening of the international relations. Today, I want to begin my speech not with the centuries-old struggle of the Chechen people for independence, but with the war in Ukraine, from which I arrived at this conference just yesterday. This crisis is not a local problem. It affects the entire international community as it threatens the foundations of the world order based on respect for sovereignty, territorial integrity, and human rights. Russia, using military force, has invaded a sovereign state, violating principles that we are all obliged to protect. Russia's military actions in Ukraine have led to countless human suffering. Thousands of civilians have died. Millions have been forced to leave their homes, and cities and villages have been destroyed. This is a humanitarian catastrophe that requires an immediate and decisive response from the international community. For us, Chechens, the situation is especially painful. We know what it means to suffer from aggression, violence, and occupation. We know the price of freedom and independence, and we cannot stand aside when another people are experiencing similar tragedies. Our hearts and thoughts are with the people of Ukraine, who are showing incredible courage and resilience in this struggle. Today, units of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия are fighting as part of the International Legion of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Although our homeland is under temporary occupation, we fight in Ukraine because it is there the fate of all humanity is being decided. We understand that today's world, as during World War II, is divided. The world after this war will no longer be the same as it was after World War II. We are on the brink of great changes, and we must be ready for them. Democratic reforms in Russia did not derail yesterday or today. We all witnessed Russia begin its departure from democratic reforms after it attacked the Chechen Republic. Around 300,000 Chechen civilians have been killed, 42,000 of them children. The Western world, following its morals and logic, believed that this was a necessary measure in the process of Russia's democratic development. However, this was a misconception. The world did not understand that this was the essence of the Russian Empire, to which democratic reforms were alien. It only needed time and Western resources for its rebirth and revenge. Today, we can assert that a third world war is essentially underway. This conflict affects not only Ukraine and Russia, but the entire world. Many countries are experiencing economic downturns, increasing instability, and growing social and political tensions. The conflict is expanding and taking in increasingly global dimensions. The world, and specifically the United Nations, must already be thinking about how the world of the future will be structured. We need to rethink and strengthen international institutions so that they can effectively prevent such conflicts in the future. We need to create conditions where aggression and violence become impossible. Our struggle, the struggle of the Chechen people, reminiscent of the resistance movement led by Charles de Gaulle in France during World War II. Back then, the true voices of France was heard through de Gaulle, who, despite lacking control over territory, was accepted into the anti-Hitler coalition. The collaborationist Vichy government cooperated with Hitler, but the true voice of France was with de Gaulle. Today, we Chechens under occupation, but fighting in the anti-Putin coalition are also the true voice of the Chechen people. We hope that here in the United Nations building, this voice will be especially resonant and heard by all members of the United Nations. After Russia failed execute blitzkrieg and take Kyiv in 3 days, the war dragged on for 2.5 years without yielding obvious victories for Russia. Amid the ongoing military campaign, Russia faced increased support for Ukraine from the Western coalition. Under these circumstances, Russia has an interest in destabilizing the global situation to divert international attention away from supporting the Ukrainian people. One of the most striking examples of such destabilization is recent conflict in the Middle East. It is evident that the beneficiary of this destabilization is Vladimir Putin. The situation in the Middle East has led to redistribution of resources and attention of the international community, ultimately weakening the focus of what Russia is doing in Ukraine now. By aiming for global destabilization, Russia hopes to reduce the level of the support for Ukraine and improve its position in this protracted conflict. However, such actions lead to even greater escalation of the tensions worldwide, threatening the security and stability of numerous regions. We are deeply concerned about the development in the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. The violence and suffering experienced by civilians require an immediate and decisive response. We oppose any form of violence and terror, regardless of the slogans or justification behind it. It is victims of civilian people, including the elderly, women and the children. Such actions not only fail to resolve the conflict, but also inflict irreparable harm on human life and dignity. We call on all parties to adhere to international humanitarian law and immediately cease military actions. The resolution of this long-standing conflict in the Middle East could be achieved by implementing the UN resolution on the creation of a Palestinian state. This solution would not settle the long-standing Israel-Palestinian conflict, but also reduce the level of tensions in the region, thereby diminishing opportunities for external players to explore the situation for their own interests. The creation of a Palestinian state would be an important step towards peace and stability in the Middle East. The government of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия exile has well-founded suspicions that Vladimir Putin used Ramzan Kadyrov to finance terrorist organizations. These suspicions are supported by the fact that Kadyrov has concentrated significant financial resources in the Middle East, including billions of dollars that could have been directed to support terrorist or extremist groups. Ramzan Kadyrov and his religious extremist sect Ahmad are accused of committing crimes against humanity in the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия and in Ukraine. Their actions include gross human rights violations, killing and torture of civilians, as well as financing terrorist groups. We welcome the International Criminal Court's announcement of an international warrant to high-ranking Russian officials such as Vladimir Putin, Sergei Shoigu, and Valery Gerasimov. This decision reflects the serious charges brought against the individuals in the context of international crimes. Such a decision inevitably triggers a strong political reaction both in Russia and internationally, underscoring the importance of international justice and principles that even high-ranking leaders are not immune from prosecution for serious crimes. It should be remembered that issuing a warrant is the initial stage of the judicial process. In any case, this event highlights the importance of the rule of law on the international stage and the global community's commitment to accountability for grave crimes. In this regard, we hope that the political leadership in Ukraine will soon decide to establish an international tribunal for Ramzan Kadyrov and his terrorist religious sect Ahmad. We urge the appointment of the special representative with whom we will interact to coordinate efforts to hold these criminals accountable. The creation of international tribunal is an important step towards restoring justice and ensuring peace and security in the region. We are ready to provide all necessary information and cooperate with international organizations to achieve this goal. The international community must unite and take decisive measures to end this aggression. We must intensify sanctions, provide the necessary support to Ukraine, and send a clear signal. Aggression will never go unanswered. We must do everything possible to restore peace and justice. History teaches us is that evil triumphs when good people do nothing. We cannot afford the luxury of inaction. We must act now to protect our common home, the planet Earth, from the destructive forces of aggression and violence. Being here in the United Nations building, I feel a deep sense of gratitude to the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. This esteemed institution has taken a historic step that will go down in the history of the Chechen people by recognizing the territory of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия as temporarily occupied by Russia. This act of recognition is an important and courageous step towards justice and freedom for the Chechen people. It symbolizes international solidarity and support in the fight for human rights and self-determination. I appeal to all Union Nation members with an urgent call to support this initiative of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine and also recognize the occupation of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия. Your recognition and support will be an important signal from the international community on unwavering commitment to the principles of justice, freedom, and respect for the sovereignty of nations. Recognition of the temporary occupation of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия will not only underscore the importance of international law, but will also be an act of solidarity with the Chechen people who have been fighting for their freedom and independence for many centuries. In conclusion, I want to express my deep gratitude to all the countries and peoples who support Ukraine in this difficult time. Your solidarity and support are sources of hope and strength for all of us. Let us work together to create a better future, one dominated by peace, justice, and respect for every individual. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
The next speaker is, as I announced, Iyad Youghar, representative of Cherkessian diaspora in USA, and our chairman of our committee, Non-Caucasus Nations Committee. I would like also to announce that in 20 minutes, the deputy of the Verkhovna Rada, Maria Mizenseva, will also join our conference by video call and will address our conference from Ukraine. She just apologized because they are under attack at this moment, so she's apologizing for being a little bit late. So Iyad, to you the word.
Yes. Thank you, Chamil. Thanks to the Human Rights Council of the United Nations for hosting this very important conference. My thanks also to COGEP the Multicultural Youth Council of Europe, its President, Mr. Ali Gadikulu, and Vice President, Ms. Dudu Kalash, for providing the North Caucasus Nation Committee with the opportunity to participate in this event. I would like also to thank, with a great appreciation, our dear friends in Ukraine, Maria Mizintseva, Oleg Dunda, and Alexei Kornishenko, and all the Verkhovna Rada members for all the support they have provided to the North Caucasus nations. Thanks to present and former members of the European Parliament, Rafael Glucksmann, Anna Fatiga, Raza Yukavinshania, and others in the European Parliament. I am a Circassian from the United States. With deep roots in Circassia, my family was forced by the Russian Empire out of our motherland, along with more than 1.5 million of our small nation, of about 2 million altogether. 1.5 million of about 2 million people were forced out of our nation. My mother's family still has a home in Circassia where my grandfather and his siblings' clothes still hanging there until now. My grandfather's sister, grieved by her brother's departure, vowed to keep their clothes hanging till they come back. Her children and grandchildren kept that vow alive until today. The world today is not aware of our Circassian tragedy and our hidden continuing genocide. 90% of our nation today, of 7 million, live in diaspora, scattered all over the world, suffering from assimilation and loss of identity every day, and prevented by Russian policies to reconnect with our roots in our motherland, Circassia. Russia has committed the same crimes against our brothers nations of the North Caucasus, Chechens, Ingush, and Dagestan. Suffered the same exact predicament on the Russians' hand during the Tsarist Russia, during the Soviet era, and today during the Russian Federation time. Our we Chechens, Circassian, Ingush, and Dagestani, we are not Russians. Our nations have suffered a great continuing tragedy since times of the Russian Empire, through the Soviet era till today. Genocide, ethnic cleansing, forced deportation, and all types of human rights violations have been committed against us systematically. These crimes against humanity include also forced crucifixion, cultural and language assassination, torture, racism, killing of journalists, activists, interference in our organization worldwide to maintain control of our nations to serve Russia's imperialist interests only. All our rights outlined in the 49 articles of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People have been violated, as well as many recognized international laws in nations' freedoms and the right to live in freedom and peace. In its criminal and bloody war in Ukraine, Russia has been forcibly recruiting our young men to fight and die in Ukraine. More than 8,000 young men from the North Caucasus until now have lost their lives, forced to fight and die in an evil war to serve Russia's imperial ambition and aggression against the freedom-loving nation of Ukraine. Many of our people fled the North Caucasus to avoid getting recruited, but Russia has found a way to bring many of them back by the Interpol by falsely accusing them of terrorism. Women and men older than 80 and children younger than 12 are terrorists in the eyes of criminal Russia. They bring them back by the Interpol to be in jail or to threaten their families or to make people scared that they would not leave Russia, leave the North Caucasus in order to run away from being recruited for the war. Today, as the world is talking about decolonization of Russia, no serious attention is given to the North Caucasus nations, despite the fact that this region will possibly be one of the most vital areas of future decolonized Russia. The North Caucasus, as the eastern border of Europe, has the potential of prosperity, cultural and economical development as part of a modern civilized European family of nations. The Circassians, the Chechens, and the Ingush and the Dagestanis is the last border of Russia. They are European, and this is the frontier of the European nation, and is being completely ignored by the West, by Europe, by the United States. On the other hand, if the world keeps ignoring the North Caucasus, it can turn into a region that will attract radicalism, fundamentalism, terrorism, and more sufferings and tragedies and lawlessness in our nation and the region, and our region and the world at large. This will be a fertile ground for any type of fundamentalism, radicalism, terrorism, you name it. They can prosper in the North Caucasus. The North Caucasus Nation Committee, NCNC, is an organization founded recently in Kiev and Brussels to establish unity and cooperation among all North Caucasus nations inside and outside our motherland to secure a future of peace and freedom for our nations. Inspired by my dear brother, Prime Minister of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия, Mr. Akhmed Zakaev, the North Caucasus Committee has been moving forward to serve the future of our nations, supported by our friends and brothers and sisters in Ukraine and among other freedom and peace-loving people. We, leadership and members of the North Caucasus Nations Committee worldwide, convinced that Ukraine's victory against Russia's aggression is a victory for us and all the civilized and freedom-loving nations of the world. We ask all civilized nations of the world to protect our young people and families who fled the North Caucasus to avoid fighting Ukraine against their will, and never hand them over to Russia under any circumstances of the misguided action and policies of the Interpol that are based on Russia's false accusation of being terrorists. We ask European countries and the United States to provide special status of protection or asylum to anyone who refuses to fight against Ukraine and who flees Russia to avoid fighting in this criminal war. We appeal to all nations to recognize the Circassian genocide and the right of all Caucasus nations to live free, independent, and in peace. This is a historical, present and future justice that must be served, because injustice in any place in the world is injustice to the entire world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Iyad. So we have 20 minutes left, and as I said, we're waiting that deputies of the Rada connect to this conference and express themselves. But as I said, they are under shootings, there are bombings going on, so we apologize. We hope still that they will have the time to connect themselves. And maybe you have some questions or some remarks on this conference. We will be glad to answer them.
By the way, I agree that we don't have anywhere near the level of attention on the North Caucasus we should do, given the human rights situation. We of course here at the UN states lead a resolution process on the human rights situation in Russia. We expect that there will be a new resolution coming at the next Human Rights Council session in September. Maybe just a few words on what you think should be priorities in that resolution process.
Right now, any resolution would have to address the emergent, immediate, and dangerous issues in Russia at large and in the North Caucasus in particular. our young children, our families are exposed to a situation where either you go and fight in Ukraine and die there while attacking a sovereign country who is defending its freedom and its dignity and the dignity of its territories, or we can put you in jail, we can call you a terrorist. And if you run away to Turkey, Europe, or any place else, we can send the Interpol against you by the false accusation that you are a terrorist, and they'll bring you back. So other people in the North Caucasus and in other territories will not dare to leave, because the Russians will publicize that even if you leave, we will have to we can bring you back. So any resolution, any address to this issue will be very important for the present situation in the North Caucasus and in Russia at large. Second, and more important than anything else, injustice for the people of the North Caucasus has gone for a long time. It's tens of years, hundreds of years, where these freedom-loving nations who never attacked anyone, somebody came in and occupied their country. The world must know this tragedy, this hidden genocide. The world knows about the Armenian genocide. The world knows about the Holocaust. But the world doesn't know that the first Holocaust in modern history was against the Caucasus and the Circassian nation. So if people are aware of those tragedies about other nations, it's about time for the world to know what's going on. Any resolution addressing that issue will be greatly appreciated and will raise the aspirations in the North Caucasus and among the North Caucasus people in the outside, also in diaspora, to become more proactive in opposing Russia's policies.
Thank you very much, Iyad. Just a minute. The deputy of the Verkhovna Rada, Alexei Goncharenko, is online.
Well, it's the human rights. It's Russian Empire, Russian Federation, which organized the first genocide of Cherkessian people, which was the first genocide in human history, probably recent human history, in the end of 19th century, end of 19th century, which organized two genocides of Chechen people after this, in the end of the Second World War, and in the 90s and beginning of 2000s, and organized genocide of Ingushian people and many other nations in North Caucasus. And now Russia is committing genocide against Ukraine. Today there was an awful attack on many of our cities, including the capital, Kiev, where the children's hospital was attacked. One of the biggest children's hospitals in the world, and the biggest in Ukraine. And we have victims and sick children, like their doctors, when they were operations, in the process of operations, they were attacked. And that is absolutely awful. That is a disaster. Russia is a terrorist state. It's a genocide which they are committing against Ukrainians today, as they did in North Caucasus. And now North Caucasus is probably, together with Ukraine, the first areas in the world from the point of view of human rights, because Russia violates everything, all rights possible there and in Ukraine during this war of aggression. Ukrainian parliament also, on my proposition, confirmed and recognized the fact of genocide of Chechen people, Ingushian people, also recognized genocide of Cherkessian people. And we addressed to all the countries and to United Nations to do the same, to help to stop all violation of human rights there. Also, I represent Ukraine in the Council of Europe, in the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. 2 years ago, our Assembly adopted a resolution about violation of human rights in the North Caucasus, recognizing what is done by Russia and by their mercenaries, like Kadyrov and Kadyrov clan and his entourage. What they are doing in North Caucasus is worse than in medieval times. And I address all of you to fulfill this resolution of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, to raise this issue, and at least to let the world know what's happening there. There's, unlike in Ukraine, at least people know what's happening in Ukraine. But what's happening in North Caucasus, unfortunately, is not said, it's not discussed widely in the world, and that is very bad. That gives Russia feeling that they are unpunishable, that they can continue what they do. So we need to stop Russian Empire as soon as possible. And these violations of human rights should be stopped. Thank you very much, and that's what I wanted to share with you. If you have any questions to me.
Thank you very much, dear friends. Regardless that we can't see you, we can feel the spirit of your support. Dear Chamil, dear Akhmed, dear Iyad, dear guests, and honorable speakers of this important conference. This is great that such high-level institutions as United Nations Office at Geneva is discussing today human rights in Northern Caucasus. I would agree with my colleague Alexei Koncharenko, and all other colleagues will support us in the endeavors that the genocide that so-called Russian Empire was committed in the 19th century, continued in the 20th, is what is happening in the 21st century, is genocidal acts, and we enshrined it in the Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly resolutions, as well as historical and important, as for me and as to the members of the temporarily investigative committee of the Parliament of Ukraine for the indigenous people of so-called Russian Federation. These amendments talk about the genocidal nature of acts against Cherkessians, against Chechens, against many indigenous people who inherit the land, who have their own culture, which is also genocidal acts. And in our recent resolution, we talk about the attempt to vanish not only Ukrainian culture and Ukrainian nature of things, but also yours. I think the re-registered law proposal to commemorate and to recognize the unlawful genocide that Russia has committed against Cherkessian people is to be voted this summer. We will have some amendment in terms of involvement of international partners, which are also your organizations, and I hope that the committee, the Line Committee, can pass it on very quickly. I think this is our duty, and I think this is the least we can do. We continue to work together with Nikita Potorayev and others in our Special Investigative Committee, and thank you for contributing to numerous resolutions that we passed in such institutions as Council of Europe. And I will call, and this is my last but not least argument, I will call us to continue, unpacking, unleashing the unknown history of brave nations, which are not very, evident to our European and world partners, because they know how the aggressor looks like today. We need to tell them how it used to be and what our generations have been through in previous centuries. Thank you very much. Thank you for supporting Ukraine. Thank you for rooting for establishing special tribunal for crime of aggression, for bringing back all deported children, for bringing back all civilians who are hostages, all military soldiers, men and women who have been hostages since 2015 as prisoners of war. And thank you for promoting a call for more F-16s, like my t-shirt says, and for more Patriot air defense systems. Thank you so much, brothers and sisters.
Thank you, Maria. So, thank you very much. And we have also we have 5 minutes left. So we give the word 2 minutes, please, to Mikita, member of the committee for indigenous people of the Verkhovna Rada. Thank you, Mikita. You have the word.
Thank you, colleagues. I will just add a few words to what Alexei and Andrey have just mentioned. As Vice President of OSCE EPA and head of Ukrainian delegation, we supported and proposed to general resolution of this summer meeting of OSCE several very strong and powerful paragraphs that directly, without any double understanding meanings, we strongly said that so-called Russian, so-called Federation is a colonial state, colonial empire, which oppressed indigenous people, which oppressed different nationalities that had their own states before they were invaded and destroyed by Russian Empire. And that the key point for victory, the key point for a defeat so-called Russian Federation is its decolonialization. So this is very, very strong message that was supported by majority of all member states in OSCE. So I call all of us now to spread all around the world the news that civilized democratic community of all countries, of all free countries, support decolonization of so-called Russian Federation, support liberation of indigenous people in Russia, and the fact that millions of people in Russian Federation has to be liberated from colonial oppression.
Thank you very much, Nikita. We have no more time left. Maria, Nikita, thank you so much. And Slava Ukraini, we wish you victory, my brothers and sisters. So thank you so much to have participated. Thank you.
About resolution. Yes, you want a question? Okay. Oh, I recognize you. Sorry.
I'm Maria Gatsrova. I'm the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Russia. And we were just having an event in another room, room 22, with members of the Russian human rights organizations, Memorial, Over the Info, and Russian media, independent media. So one question for the future, it would have been great to coordinate somehow in order for you to come to our event, to the event we were in, and we, thank God, managed to come at least for half of your event. But just to say, I was appointed last April to this post, which is the first ever mandate on the Russian Federation. It was a great success of this Human Rights Council to have such a mandate of independent experts to prepare reports through this resolution. It's voted every year in September, the continuation of my mandate. I already have one report which I delivered last year. I'm preparing 2 reports. And let me reassure you, the situation and the despicable atrocities and human rights violations systematically applied to the Chechen people, but not only, to the people of the North Caucasus, from torture, maltreatment, to enforced disappearances, to extrajudicial executions of opponents to the government of Mr. Kadyrov in Chechnya, to disappearance of women as well, the use of honor killings. The families are now involved in the lack of accountability for crimes committed by the state authorities, who are now giving certain groups of the people, victims, to their families and telling them, you can now kill them, they violated your honor. I think I could continue. There are many, many violations, and I think the connection is because the crimes committed in Chechnya, in particular, during the 2 Chechen wars, especially the Second Chechen War, were never properly investigated. The perpetrators were never brought to justice, It's only the decisions of the European Court if these petitioners even survived, because I remember the time during the Chechnya war, Second War, when Russian federal forces were going door to door, looking to kill, eliminate every petitioner to the European Court. So, of course, the impunity, the continuing impunity and human rights violations in Chechnya and the North Caucasus are connected to the lack of accountability for the crimes during the Chechen wars. And also, a lot of law enforcement were trained how to torture then. They continue these methods now. Certain groups are more tortured and killed than others. Of course, I should mention the LGBT people, or men perceived as being LGBT, have been subjected to despicable torture, including sexual violence, rape. Some are forced to fight in Ukraine under threat, under coercion. So just to say, I'm monitoring Chechnya and the North Caucasus. I'm absolutely on the pulse of what's happening. I'm in contact with the human rights defenders who are working really under threat to their lives.